Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy died tragically. And it's not what you think. And it actually pertains to hospice. Gene Hackman, the Oscar winning actor, and his wife Betsy were found dead in their Santa Fe home February 26th. Now, when they were first found, the police didn't know what to make of it. Gene, who was 95, was found dead in the house somewhere. His wife, who was 30 years younger, around 65, was also found dead in the house. No sign of foul play, no sign of a break-in. The door was open, so possibly they just didn't know what to make of it. Their dog was also found dead. They had 2 other dogs that were staying at a friend's house. So it was a complete mystery. There were a lot of theories going up. Maybe it was carbon monoxide. Maybe poison was involved. Maybe there was foul play. They didn't know. So it was a mystery for a few days. What they did find was that his wife, Betsy, had a rare disease that you can get through rodent exposure called the hantavirus. Now, I might even be saying it wrong. I have never heard of this virus, but it can be deadly, and she did have it. Through the autopsies, they were able to prove when each of them died. And what they think happened was she died from this rare disease, leaving her husband, Gene, to care for himself, which he was 95, and we later found out he had advanced Alzheimer's disease. So he needed his wife to survive, literally. So within a week, Gene was found dead. Now, they don't actually think he died from something like starvation or dehydration. The autopsy showed that he actually had a cardiac event, and they think that's what he died from. But this is a prime example of when a family has one caregiver who is obviously and definitely overworked and burnt out, and she's caring for everybody. That caregiver gets sick, and then everyone gets sick. Now, this is the worst case scenario where she died, which then caused him not to have a caregiver, and then for him to die, and then their dog, their poor dog, ended up being in a crate. And because he was in a crate with no caregivers around, he did die, they think, of dehydration and starvation. This is a tragic, tragic ending. Now, the reason why I bring it up is because I see this so often on hospice. Now, thankfully, I don't see a lot of people dying because of this, but I see when there is one caregiver who is trying to care for someone who is also elderly and sick themselves. When a family doesn't have a support system, this is the kind of tragedy that can happen. And I am not victim blaming here. I'm not blaming Betsy or blaming Gene or blaming the family. There's no blame here. It's more for education to help people see how important it is that they can't be the only one. We have to have a community of people around us, even if it's just a call-in every week, someone calling to check on them every week to say, how's it going? What's going on? Or if I don't hear from you every Tuesday at, 9 a.m., I know something's wrong, or I know I need to call you to check on you. We need to have safety checks in place. So if something happens to that main caregiver, that doesn't destroy the rest of the household. This is one of the last pictures they have of Gene and his wife. You can clearly see he's much elderly now, walking with a cane. She's holding his hand. I'm sure she was an amazing caregiver to Gene and the dogs. This is just something tragic that happens that can help our eyes be opened to the severity of the situation when someone is someone's caregiver. They need care too. The caregivers need care too. They need support. People can't do it alone. And even if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I can't help it. I am alone. I have no one else. I would urge you to try to think outside the box for your own safety, for your loved one's safety. Do you have a neighbor that you say hi to? Do you have any form of community, any church you go to, any Pilates class you go to, anything that you are showing up for on a regular basis, even if it's once or twice a week, something like that where you can connect to people like that so they know you, they know what you're doing, and they know to check on you specifically. And if your loved one's on hospice and you have hospice coming into the home, you need to tell them you're concerned, the social worker you're concerned, the nurse you're concerned, the chaplain you're concerned, and see how we can help you, how we can check in on you, because that's what we're there for. That's what we're there for. And I often wonder, Gene clearly had advancing Alzheimer's disease. Now, in the picture that I showed you, he was walking there, so he probably was not far enough along in his disease to be on hospice, but maybe by the time that his wife had died, was he wheelchair bound? Was he walking? Was he talking? We don't know. We don't know. So could he have been on hospice? If he was on hospice, would this have changed things? So here are some practical things you can do if this sounds like your circumstance, or possibly a circumstance that you may be in one day as the sole caregiver. Number one, have people checking in on you, at least one person, at least once a week. Even if it's a phone call, you call them, they call you once a week. They need to know what's going on, particularly if you're not feeling well, right? We need to know that, because Gene and his wife were dead in their house for, I want to say almost a week, maybe more, before anyone even knew to check on them. That tells you they were slightly isolated. So you don't want to have that. You want to have a point of contact from somebody who's outside of the home that can check on you, you can check on them, and vice versa, at least once a week. Two, this is an all hands on deck kind of time. So even if you're the type of person who's like, I've got this, or you're uncomfortable asking for help, or you don't think you have help, you have to dig deep. Okay, you gotta dig deep. Ask someone that's in your circle of people to help you, once a month, twice a month, once a week if they can, meaning like to come to the house, give you a break, or talk to the social worker from hospice about how can I do this? How can I get out at least once a week or a couple times a month? So you need to start thinking about people that you possibly can ask. And even if it's hard for you, you gotta try to do it, because not only is your life at stake, your loved one's life is at stake. This is when we need to try to get as much community around us as possible. And I think it's a call for all of us, all of us, to reach out to each other, to try to form community best we can. I think we grew up in an individualistic society where it's like you pull yourself up by the bootstraps and you just do what you gotta do by yourself, on your own. You got this. And we just can't do that anymore. We just can't do that, because things like this will happen. We have to utilize each other. We have to ask for help, and we have to support people. If you know that you have a friend who is caring for their loved one, this is your cue to reach out to them. Ask them, how can I help you? Or not even can I, I'm going to help you. So if you have some things you want, let me know. If not, I'm just going to show up. So this is your cue. Reach out to each other, talk to each other, help each other.